Welcome to another episode of Jamming with Jason. Hey, today we're bringing to you another exciting guest, and we're going to be talking about a topic that you may or may not have heard about. And so, I always like to introduce you to things and kind of bring into your awareness some things that might be helpful for you in your life. And today's session is exactly about that when I'm talking with Bill Klaproth. And so whatever you do, the fact that you're listening to this podcast means there's something in here for you today. And in fact, it's another way of being healthier and living a much better life that you may not even be aware about. So with that, let's go ahead and roll that episode. Hello, Bill. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's I was kind of laughing to myself, right? I have all these private jokes because I talk to myself in my head all the time. But it's like, yeah, two old guys with beards today on the podcast. So and we both got a little gray going on there. So, well, welcome. I'm excited to have you here because I know you have a very interesting story that I wanted to help share with people. And you're actually doing something that, I've been aware of for a long time, but a lot of people aren't aware that it's even a thing. Okay. And that's hypnotherapy, right? So
Yeah.
So I wanted to, I know you've got a really interesting story. So what I wanted to do was kind of, back up a little bit and kind of talk about your life and how you came to become a hypnotherapist, right? Because I just kind of wanted to maybe start off there just to kind of see how you got to where you're at, and then we can kind of jump in and talk about, so what is this? How does it actually work? What kind of stuff does it actually help with? Because I know it's helped you in your life, and we were talking before about your brother, and so let's just kind of jump in there. So kind of what's your story and what brought you to where you are now?
All right. Well, Jason, I grew up in Texas, and growing up in Texas, obviously I went out and we hunted, we fished,
Yep.
Did all those kinds of things. I grew up, I got a job and I had jobs that had me traveling all over the place. I even got to travel to other countries with my job. It was a really good job. I was doing telecommunications on remote locations. Yep. So I'd get sent out to these places and we'd be out in the middle of nowhere, miles to a town or to a phone or anything. We'd put in communications on these locations. And I loved the job. And I got into an accident at work, and I heard those words that nobody wants to hear. You have to change careers.
And you're like, no, I'm in a career that I love.
Yes, it's like, man, what better job can I have? I get to travel all over the place. I meet good buddy. It's great. And they told me that it was pretty devastating, obviously, and I was pretty bummed. And I had to go get surgery. I was in rehabilitation, and not long after I was in rehabilitation, I'm thinking, what am I going to do for a living? And about that time, my brother got cancer, and the doctors gave him like 4 months to live. And who wants to hear they only have 4 months left to live? And it was pretty devastating to my brother, and he was depressed. So the doctor tells him, why don't you go see a hypnotherapist? And so my brother went, and I watched the changes in my brother, how it affected him, how he went from being, like had no hope or anything in his life to all of a sudden he's like, hey, maybe I can beat this. And he went through all of his treatments and everything. And he went and searched out on a school so he could learn to be a hypnotherapist. And the whole time I'm going through my rehabilitation, I'm watching all this and I'm seeing how it's affecting him. And I thought, you know what? it's made a big difference in my brother's life. Maybe I should look at that. So I went in and started classes on learning how to be a hypnotherapist. So went through the classes, and hypnotherapy, it allows you to look at yourself and you can see things, and you start to think, hey, wait a minute. Now I understand why my marriage failed. Now I understand why I had these issues. One of the things that we learned is it's called theory of mind. And it's a pretty simple thing. And you're born with the empty blank mind, except for one little portion where you have the primitive mind, which is fight, flight, or freeze. And you're born with two things. You're afraid of loud noises and you're afraid of falling. But you have this beautiful empty mind, and you start putting stuff into your mind. And as an example, let's say as a kid growing up, your mom rewards you with chocolate cake every time you have a good grade. And your mom rewards you with chocolate cake every time you fall down, you skin your knee and you cry to make you feel better. We're all familiar with this. And as we grow, this becomes a known in our mind, and our mind seals it in there. This is one of those things that kind of builds up, that slowly over time, it becomes a known in our mind. So as an adult, you're like, oh, dang, I need to lose weight. And you're working hard, you're struggling at losing this weight, and you go out to eat, and they wheel that cart by with all the desserts on there, and you see that big chocolate cake, you're like going, oh man, I had a bad day at work today. And your subconscious mind, which controls 90 to 95% of your brain, kicks in and says, we don't care what you're wanting. This is what we're going to do. So you end up eating that cake. You go home, you're all flustered because, oh, I've been trying to, I'm a failure because I ate that cake. No, you're not a failure. It's hard to overcome that 95% of your brain that says, nope, this is what you're going to do, because this is what we learned, and this is a known to us. Good or bad for us, our mind wants to stay to what it knows.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, like that with the chocolate cake, because like you said, it's we come to this world and then we get programmed. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's all those little things like you shared there about, hey, if you get a good grade, mom gives you chocolate cake. If you skin your knee, mom gives you chocolate cake. Right.
Yeah.
And so what we learn over many years is chocolate cake makes things better. Yeah. Right. If I want to celebrate something, I eat chocolate cake. If I'm not feeling good, I eat chocolate cake. Right. And then what ends up happening to most of us is we get to midlife and we're like, what the fuck? I'm overweight. And all the chocolate cake we've eaten all of our life. And it's really no surprise. Right. And even too, like you said, when we consciously try to do things like lose weight, we still find ourselves eating that chocolate cake, even though consciously we're telling ourselves, no, I got to lose the 10 pounds. Right.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's that way with chocolate cake. It's that way with lots of different things, in our life. That's just one particular example, right? But I know, like you mentioned before, of being able to see some things differently, right? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, now I know why I got a divorce, right? I'm divorced, remarried, so same kind of thing. I mean, but there's even to that point, right? And again, if you're comfortable kind of sharing, because I know a lot of times people go through different relationships and they can't figure out why they can't keep a relationship together, and a lot of times it's the equivalent of that chocolate cake has been put in, and they're kind of sabotaging themselves in their relationships as well.
yeah, with relationships, there's two basic types of traits, if you want to call it that, where one person is going to be more worried about security, like having the income to pay all the bills, making sure the groceries are there, all of that. The other type of person is the one that's going to want to hang out with their buddies, go out to eat, go out to the bar, go do all those fun things. And that person is usually the one that's more, you could call more outgoing. They're the one that's going to always dress nicer, look nicer, worry about their hair, their fingernail, all those things. And so each person has what they consider the most important thing in life, and they tend to attract each other. And that causes problems because the person that's more worried about work, which that would be me, I'm like, hey, I'm working, I'm going out doing this stuff. That is me showing you I love you. The other person's like, no, you're not here for me. That's not showing me you love me at all, which makes them go crazier because I think I'm doing what I need to do and they think they're doing what they need to do. And because I didn't understand how to respond to the other person, that just created more issues and problems, which led to a divorce.
Yeah, because here the whole time you're thinking, well, I'm being a good provider, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm making good money, I'm bringing home good money, but like you said, I mean, it was a job that you loved, but you were away all the time. And I'm guessing that there's, probably a part of you too that liked to be outside, like to be out in the middle of nowhere, kind of doing the stuff. I mean, that was something that was good for you, that fed you, if you will, as well. But to your wife, it was like, but you're never here.
Yes. And in kind of the model I'm speaking of, like my personality, the one that wants to be the provider, we kind of like to be alone. And the outgoing person, they don't like being alone. They like people around. They're the ones that want to hug and kiss and be lovey-dovey. And like me, it's like, okay, I'm okay with that every few days or whatever, but not all the time. So just understanding those simple little aspects of the basic personalities makes a big difference.
Yeah. Well, and so let's go back, because I wanted to talk just a bit about your brother's story again, and then kind of jump in, because cancer is one of those things that I think pretty much everybody in this world has been touched by cancer some way, right? Either they've gotten it, somebody that they know, that they love, and their family has gotten it, may have died from it. I mean, my mother died of breast cancer, after, going through 3 rounds of treatment over 5 or 6 years. And so, it's something that a lot of people are afraid of as well, because I mean, it's scary, right? I mean, watching somebody die of cancer is not a fun thing to watch. And so, here again, your brother was kind of given that prognosis of, look, you've only got 4 months left to live. We're going to go through and try to do these things to see if we can give you a couple of extra months, I'm guessing is what they're saying, because typically when you're given that short of a time, it's pretty significant in what's going on. So, it's easy to understand why, when, it seems like when people get given that prognosis, they kind of go one of two ways. One is they're totally bubbly and optimistic, and I'm going to fight this, and fuck you, cancer, kind of a thing, right? And then there's the other group, which is, oh my gosh, I'm going to die in 4 months. You end up going into sadness and sometimes depression, and then end up failing away, right? And so it sounds like your brother was kind of going through some of those things, but the doctor said, hey, why don't you go to hypnotherapy? So what happened what happened in that story too, because we kind of left people hanging a little bit. What happened to your brother, right? I mean, he was given 4 months to live. He goes and does this thing called hypnotherapy. Well, what really happened?
Well, what happened was hypnotherapy allowed him to change his mindset, and our minds have a direct correlation with our bodies. And by him changing his mindset, he's still around and kicking. He's I don't know that you can say he's completely free or clear of it. He may never be, but we're 5 years down the road and he's still running around living his life. So just being able to change your mindset, like you were saying, the people that accept what the doctor says, they've allowed whatever the problem is to win, and they've given up, and they're not going, and they're going to be the ones that die in the 4 months that the doctor gave him. And that's where my brother was headed until he started doing the hypnotherapy, and his whole attitude changed after that. He started laughing again. He started having the jokes again. He started being the person he was, which allowed him to kind of persevere and work his way through it.
Yeah, it was just kind of ironic because I know I've talked with somebody who's actually a laughter therapist, and just the power of healing that even laughter can bring. And so, yeah, helping him kind of get back to who he was, of joking and kind of carrying on, probably, helped as well with him. So for people that, because I'm familiar with it. I mean, I've done hypnotherapy sessions. I use self-hypnosis a lot myself. But for a lot of people, they're kind of like, well, what is that? Or maybe they've only seen it, like at the county fair,
Right.
Something like that, where a lot of times there'll be the stage hypnosis, shows that make people get up and quack like a chicken and do all that kind of stuff. And so to a lot of people, if that's really been their only introduction to it, they're kind of put off by it. Right.
Well,
and I think I know, as we were talking before, you were kind of put off at it, to begin with too, a little bit. So maybe talk about that and then kind of explain what is it actually? What does it actually do? What does it look like? How does that kind of work?
Well, coming from the viewpoint that I had, okay, I grew up in the South. The South is the Bible Belt. I attended church. I was a Christian, and it was like hypnosis is of the devil.
I've heard people say that before, right? Where it's like they think it's some voodoo witchcraft kind of thing, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh no, you can't, that's of the devil. And well, God created our bodies to work in unison with each other. We have an electrical system in our body. If anything in our body gets out of whack, it creates health issues for us. It creates mental issues for us. So once I learned what it really is, which hypnosis, you're not giving up control. You're not, if I put you into hypnosis, Jason, I could not have you write a check out to me that had everything in your bank account. You'd be like, what? Wait a minute, there's something wrong. No.
Unless I wanted to give you all the money, and then I would, right?
Right.
But
I can't make you do anything you don't want to do. Hypnosis is, we work with you to help things get better for you. It's a do with, not a do to process. So most people don't realize they're in hypnosis at least twice a day. The 30 minutes before you go to bed and the 30 minutes after you wake up, you're basically in hypnosis. Have you ever laid down to go to bed and you're watching TV and you go to sleep and all of a sudden you're having dreams about what you watched on TV? That's because that gets put into your mind as if it's as when you're in hypnosis. So when you're driving down the road and you kind of space out and you miss your turn off, you think, oh, wait a minute. what just happened? I missed my turn. Well, that's a form of hypnosis. Is you when you're driving on the road, you go into road hypnosis, and most people have experienced that also. And when you're in a movie theater and you're watching a movie, you get so into that movie that everyone around you fades out, and all you can do is focus on that movie. You're in hypnosis there. The entertainment industry knows the formula to get people into hypnosis, to buy into when that character on the screen, something sad happens and those tears start coming down, and that's not really happening. That's not a real person, but yet you've bought into it by going into hypnosis.
Yeah, because that's one thing that amazed me when I first started learning about it, is how much of the time we're in a hypnotic state and we don't even realize it. And so, a lot of times people are afraid to go into that state because they feel like it's something unnatural. Or like you said, I'm going to lose control, or it's of the devil, sort of a thing. But it's not. It's more of a kind of relaxed state where your mind slows down, and it just allows us to be able to, focus wholly on what's going on and tap directly into our subconscious. Because, like you said, we've had a lot of things like the chocolate cake programmed into us, and the only way to reprogram that is to go in and reprogram it, right? Which is kind of what hypnosis is actually doing. So kind of just to explain, maybe, again, if somebody came to you or came to another hypnotherapist, what would they kind of expect? What would a session kind of look like, so that they would kind of know before they go into it what to kind of expect? Because I feel like a lot of times when we understand what's going to happen, we're a lot less scared about it, right?
Yeah. When the person comes in and I start the session off with listening to them kind of telling me what the problem is, how they want to feel about things, and kind of where they're wanting to go. And then after that, we'll put them into hypnosis, and hypnosis is the hypnotherapist talking to the person to help them get to that point. Then once they're in hypnosis, they will get more relaxed than they can remember. That's one of the things I hear regularly is, wow, that was so relaxing. Can I stay in hypnosis?
You could, but you shouldn't operate your car afterwards.
Yeah. So you go into hypnosis, and then we do something called a progressive relaxation, and that's just to help you, the person, relax, let go of tensions and stresses that they're holding on to. Most people hold on to things they don't even realize they're holding on to, negative emotions, negative feelings, and they hang on to these things. And through hypnosis, you can help them release those things. So hypnosis it can be a guided imagery to where, if your favorite place is the beach, let's say, the hypnotherapist can use a guided imagery of you going along the beach to help you relax and to release any of those negatives you're holding on to, and help you get to the place you want to be.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, like I said, I've used it a lot, and a lot of the benefits of you're talking about there too. There's actually a term called hypno junkies that you probably heard. I don't, where it's like people get into it and they love it and they're like, man, I want to do this every day, right? So we're like doing self audios every day, or doing other stuff, because when you get into that very relaxed state, most of the time we're on all the time. Right? We're stressed up, we're wound up, and really we don't take time usually to relax. And so this is an opportunity, just like, going and getting a massage, or doing other
Yeah.
things like that, where it kind of forces yourself to relax a little bit as well. And the nice thing too is, like you said, it's not, there's different ways of doing the induction, and there's different ways of, when you're actually in the hypnosis, depending on the school, that each person has kind of gone to, or what works for them, or what you're kind of working on. But you're pretty much just kind of being told or talked to and kind of taken along a journey,
Yes.
if you will, and ask certain questions. So it's not, it's nothing that's intrusive. It's not like somebody's giving you a pill. It's not like somebody's, taking a scalpel and cutting you open, or doing anything like that. And I think, one thing too that I think I've heard from people, some apprehension is, well, what if I want to come out of hypnosis? What if something happens in the middle of the session? Is it okay for me to come out of it? Do I come out of it? How does that kind of thing work?
I've had people in the middle of the hypnosis session, the phone rings. They sit up and they go, "Oh, give me a second." And they answer their phone, and then we just continue right on in it. Hypnosis, you can get up and walk out of it at any time you want to. Most people don't. They like that relaxation. Most people have their lives, like you were saying, are so stressed and so busy. They want to stay there. That's a comforting, relaxing place, being in hypnosis.
Mhm.
So even though you can get up and get out of it any time, you're not going to get stuck in hypnosis. Nobody ever gets stuck in hypnosis.
I know one of my friends who's a hypnotist said, nobody's ever had to go to the emergency room because they were stuck in hypnosis, right? Excuse me, doctor, but I need you to get me out of hypnosis because I can't do it, right? I mean, we get ourselves out of hypnosis pretty easily, usually. Like you said, I mean, just when you're watching a movie or anything else, you come out of it normally.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's not going to be like I was watching the television show not too long ago, and the character in the television show was like 5 years down the road from seeing a hypnotherapist, and every time the bell rang, they would act like a Soviet spy.
Like a Pavlov's dog kind of syndrome. It doesn't work that well.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
No. I mean, and there's if you choose to train yourself with certain inductions, you can go into hypnosis quicker. But yeah, it's not like the parlor trick kind of stuff that you see for entertainment purposes.
No.
So yeah.
And basically what we're doing with hypnosis is we're trying to bypass that critical mind, because like we talked about earlier, but sometime between the ages of 8 and 10, we build this little wall in our mind that separates our critical mind, where we think, we reason, we do all that stuff. And that separates it between the subconscious mind. And so you have to get in there and open up a little door to be able to get those thoughts and those suggestions that you want in there, to help get them into your subconscious mind. And that's all you're doing with hypnosis, is helping those wanted things to bypass that little wall that's there.
Well, and like we were talking about before with the chocolate cake, right? Is that, there's been several different studies that are done, and you kind of referenced this before, about 90 to 95% of what we do is actually subconscious, right?
Correct.
And I think that's one of the things that so many people don't realize is we think, hey, I can use my conscious willpower to make anything happen. But it's like, I'm sorry, but you can't, right? I mean, you'd like to think you could, but your subconscious is making decisions 6, 7, 8 seconds before you can even consciously think about it. And so really the only way to get to and make some of those changes, because you can't will yourself not to eat the chocolate cake. It might work once or twice, but it ain't going to work all the time, right? You're going to find yourself going back to the chocolate cake and not realizing why you're doing that. And so you have to kind of open that little door and get back in and kind of reprogram that part of the brain that's
Mhm.
harder to access, like you said, once we get past 8 to 10, which is just the whole human development thing is pretty amazing that way for me too. But, and especially how we think that consciously thinking we can think our way through anything, but we can't think our way through it, right?
Right.
And it's just like, what your brother experienced, what I've experienced, it's like we can't think ourselves to becoming happy, right? It's like if I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm in a funk, I'm depressed, I can't get up and move, but
Mhm.
I'm going to think my way. I'm going to think and will my way until I do it. It just doesn't work that way. We have to use some other mechanism,
Mhm.
music, movement, self-hypnosis, something to be able to bypass that, because just the conscious thought itself doesn't make the change. You're not
Right.
changing the programming when you're trying to change the conscious thought.
Right. And here's something a lot of people can easily relate to. When I was a little kid, I was walking down the street and I saw a Saint Bernard in this backyard, and I thought,
Mm.
"Oh, a Saint Bernard!" So I rush over there to pet the Saint Bernard, and the Saint Bernard bites me. So now that one little event that occurred, now every time I see a dog, my first thing is, "Whoa, the dog might bite me." But now let's say you grew up with a house full of pets, and you and I are both walking down the street. You had pets, you loved them, they were great. We're walking down the street. My first reaction, because this was a one-time instant moment, there's a dog. I'm like, oh, back up, and you want to run over there and start petting and saying, "Oh, what a good dog."
Yep.
The programming can be instantaneous, or it can take a long period of time to create those messages in our minds. And like we said earlier, our mind, those become knowns. And when we have those knowns in our minds, that's where our mind wants to go to. So when we're trying to say, okay, we need to change how we eat, our mind's going, wait a minute, we don't know this one. We know eat chocolate cake.
Mhm.
So that's what it just automatically goes to.
Well, I think it's interesting too that example with the dog. It shows how quickly sometimes things can get programmed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think on the flip side too, it also, proves how quickly things can be reprogrammed as well,
Yeah.
right? That a lot of times, what maybe took you 30, 40, 50 years of conditioning to, be afraid of dogs or eating a chocolate cake, sometimes in one session can be reprogrammed. Now, sometimes it takes more, right? And I'm sure it probably makes a difference as to what you're working on typically on as
Yes,
well, how
it
long
does.
it kind of takes to kind of get through some of this stuff.
There was a study done a few years ago, and they looked at 600 sessions of normal therapy and they had about a 37% success rate after 600 sessions of traditional therapy. And then when they looked at 6 sessions of hypnotherapy, you have a 93% success rate. So hypnotherapy goes in there and allows you to get in there and get that programming changed fairly rapidly. We've been working with IBS patients.
Mm-hmm.
IBS is one of those things the doctors don't really know what's wrong with it. With the patient or the client, they're like, we don't know why you're having all these problems. We think it might be stress or it might be anxiety, but we go in there and we work with people, and we are having about a 95% success rate with people that have severe IBS symptoms, helping them overcome those symptoms and get the brain and the stomach working together again.
Yeah, and so just in case people don't know, IBS, right? Irritable bowel syndrome, right?
Yes.
Which I don't know, it affects a lot of people, right? To where you just don't know what it is, but food
Mhm.
just kind of goes right through you.
Yeah.
And so, it does have a big impact on a lot of people's lives. And like you
Yes.
said, just after a few sessions of actually going through what sometimes the doctors can't fix or can't place their
Yeah.
thumb on as to why it's happening, you're having about 95% of the people actually.
Yes. Between 1 and 6 sessions, 95% of the people that we work with are no longer having major issues with it. We don't consider it a success if we do not reduce their symptoms by at least 50% or more.
Well, and this is one of those things too, because I know that you guys have been doing a lot with IBS, which
Mhm.
again, like I said, that's a big issue for a lot of people. But what are some of the other reasons maybe why a lot of times people come to hypnotherapists? What are some of the kind of common things that people are looking for help with? The hypnotherapy is actually very effective at
Okay.
helping.
We also deal with people that are wanting to stop smoking. And stop smoking is one of those things that people have problems with for years. And normally 1 to 3 sessions. And with hypnosis, you can stop smoking. Losing weight. If you've had trouble with losing weight and you want to lose weight, hypnotherapy, that usually takes longer,
Yeah.
typically in the 12 to 14 session range.
Yeah, because I've heard that from a lot of people. Some hypnotherapists don't even do weight loss because it is a longer issue, because there's so much else tied to our weight than just
Yes,
one thing. And a lot of times there has to be several things that are kind of reprogrammed before the weight actually comes off.
correct. Stress is another big one. Anxiety. Uh, we've worked with people for pain management. Uh, let's see. I'm trying to think of the big ones here. Uh, test having problems with tests. People
Yep.
stress over that. Fear of driving is another big one. Someone driving down the road and they may be involved in an accident, or they may see an accident that occurred, and now they have a fear of driving. That's one that can be overcome. And fear of flying. I dealt with a gentleman that had a fear of snakes. He had this fear. His fear was so bad that he couldn't even walk outside. He'd pretty much run from his house to his vehicle and go to work and do the same thing at work. He just couldn't get out anymore. Worked with him 1 session with hypnotherapy, and he was going outside. He was going on hikes. Now he did come back to see me after about 6 months, because he was taking a trip to the south.
There's a lot more snakes down there.
There's a lot of snakes down there, so he was a little worried about that. But it did make a big difference for him.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to talk a little bit too, about the, because I know you're living in Wyoming now,
Mhm.
small town as well. And I know sometimes, I mean, I've done most of my stuff remote. So, using something like Zoom or some sort of a virtual, is that how you're actually working with most of your patients, or is this something that needs to be in person, or?
Zoom is the most common way that I'm dealing with clients at the time. I've done it by the telephone. I've done it by Zoom with no video. That's because they didn't have the internet connection to maintain the video, but they could do the audio only. In person, pretty much any way. If we can talk to each other, we can do hypnosis.
Okay, because I know that's a question a lot of times that people have is, well, how do I find a local hypnotherapist? And it's like, well, you don't have to be local, right? I mean, you could literally
No.
be talking to somebody halfway around the world. And
Yes.
like you said, as long as you can talk to them, obviously the video is probably easier for the therapist too, because there are signs, folks, when you're going into
Yes.
hypnosis as well, that they're trained to know how deep you're actually in, if the first induction actually worked, or how much more deepening that you need to do before you actually start doing the work. But that's one of those too, where it's like, I love it because I don't have to worry about thinking, right? All I have to do is listen to words,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes have some imagery and other stuff that I'm doing, but it's for the patient themselves, it's a very easy thing to do as well.
Yes. Uh, most people do not have the opportunity, one, just to talk to somebody that's going to just sit there and listen to them. And two, most people don't have the opportunity to truly relax and let go. And that's two of the things that you'll get when you go to hypnotherapy, is you'll get someone to listen to you. I want to listen to people because if I don't listen to them, how do I know what it is they need to work on? What do they want to change? I'll give you an example. This one guy came to me and was like, "I'm here because my wife sent me." Okay. And what do you want to do? Well, my wife tells me I need to quit smoking. Okay.
Let me guess,
Obviously,
a session with that person didn't work, did it?
so it's like, okay, well, I can't do anything for you. What do you want to work? I said, what would you like to fix? Well, I would like to have a better golf swing. Okay. And that's kind of what we focused on, was a better golf swing. But that's just it. If I don't listen to the client, then you can't help them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's to me, I've known about this for a long time, and hopefully, again, I mean, everybody that's listening, the fact that you're still listening means, maybe this is something you try out, right? There's lots of other alternatives to just going and popping a pharmaceutical pill for a lot of different things, right? I mean, if it's trauma, if there's, some serious stuff, but even, like we were talking about with your brother, even things like cancer can be helped by this. He was doing both, the medical chemo radiation stuff as well as this, and the combination of the two, went from 4 months left to live to now he's been around for another 5 years, right?
Mhm.
So that it's something that you can do in combination with other
Yes.
things as well.
And it's been scientifically proven that during hypnosis, certain levels in the body, they rise where they're supposed to with cancer patients. The levels that need to go down will go down through hypnosis. And our brain does not know the difference between when it's imagining something and what's real. So when you start having your brain focus on what you're wanting with yourself, your brain thinks, well, this is what it's supposed to be, and your brain will start changing it in your body. How many times have you ever been so angry at someone you can feel it in your belly? That's, when you get angry like that, it's having an effect on your body and your brain at the same time. So that's how, by removing certain feelings or emotions, or having your brain see things a different way, will fix that and eliminate that. So you're angry, you're holding on to that anger, which who wants to feel bad? But you're holding on to that anger, it creates problems in your body. And so as a hypnotherapist, we help you release that anger. That anger goes away. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have a problem in your stomach anymore. And your brain starts saying, oh, wait, okay, I don't have stomach problems anymore. And I don't feel depressed anymore. And I don't feel this anymore. So now your body starts to work better. You're going to be You're going to be happier. You're just going to you're going to have a better quality of life.
Mhm. Well, and I think that's what everybody, a lot of the aches and pains, a lot of the, depression, anxiety, a lot of these different emotions that so many of us are feeling, it's things that usually can be reprogrammed, because we're
Yes.
feeling those things because of some experiences we've had in the past, that when we can finally reprogram them, then we don't have to worry about them, going forward. And like you said, it's usually a lot quicker, a lot higher percentage of people that are actually getting results with it. Which is another reason why I wanted to have you on today, just to be able to talk a little bit more about it. And also, I know when you said something, just in case somebody who's listening is like, oh, come on, Bill, right? Our
Mhm.
brain, you just said that our brain doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary. Are you kidding me? I'm a very smart, educated person. I know the difference, right, between what's real and what's
Right.
imaginary. Okay, then how come when you're watching a sad movie and you start crying, why are you crying? Why are you feeling sad? You know the movie's not real, but you're doing it anyway, right? Because again, even though the movie is not real, we're feeling those emotions, we're in that hypnotic state. And
Yeah,
so to our body and brain, it feels like it's real.
correct. And athletes have been using self-hypnosis
Long time.
forever. The whole they see themselves making that catch or hitting the ball or that perfect swing. They go over and over and over in their minds. That's self-hypnosis. So by them visualizing it and seeing it in their mind, that's what the body starts to understand is how it needs to happen. And those high level athletes, that's how they can perform. That's part of how they can perform the way they do week in and week out, is they've trained their mind that this is what it's supposed to be.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's why, again, I mean, it's going over this and over this and over this in our head, and kind of reprogramming. These things really do make a huge difference. And like you said, athletes have been using this for a long time. Now it's just coming to more of the awareness of regular people,
Yeah.
right? Because we can do the same things. We can change how we're performing in our life, right? I mean, we can use it, like you said, for a lot of different things: golf swing, quit smoking, IBS, lots of different health kind of related things. But a lot of people also use it for kind of a peak performance standpoint, like athletes do, right?
Yeah.
If you're running a business, if you're worried about an upcoming board meeting or speech that you have to give,
Yeah.
the same thing can be used to help you perform at a high level, just like those professional athletes do as well.
Correct. And it's not uncommon for people to get anxiety over having to stand up and speak in front of a crowd. And hypnosis can help that without a problem.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's good stuff. Well, and Bill, I appreciate you, coming on and talking. And I think too, one of the things that we mentioned a little bit too, but it's it's, you were talking about your accident before and being told,
Mhm.
you can't do that job anymore, Bill, you know, and a lot of people are being told, Jason, you can't do that job anymore because we're firing you, or we're
Yeah.
getting rid of this, whatever it is, right? And
Mhm.
just to know that there's lots of other ways to make money. There's lots of other things that we can do with our life. And so maybe we can kind of end here. I mean, you could have done lots of different things. Why did this big burly guy from Wyoming that grew up in Texas, of all the things you could pick, why did you choose hypnotherapy as how you want to help people and earn your money now?
Well, it boils down to I want to help people. and be able to live the lifestyle I live. What better way can I reach and help people with things that they can't get help with any other way? And I can reach people all over the world.
Yeah. Well, and it's beautiful that we have the technology that we have now. So we can do that, even just like now that we can be recording this. And now that through technology, people literally all over the world will be listening to this. Even though we're recording it somewhere in the cloud on some server in some server farm somewhere, and you're sitting in Wyoming and I'm sitting in California, but somebody anywhere in the world now will be able to listen to this, which to me is just wonderful too. And it, like I said, it opens up the ability for things like hypnotherapy that 20 years ago it was mainly in-person stuff, so it was a lot more limited.
Yeah.
And who could have access to it, where now it's not.
Yeah, it is wonderful to be able to meet people from all over the world. That was one of the things I enjoyed with my previous job, was being able to travel and meet people from all walks of life, from all around the world. And I still get to maintain and get to do that with this job.
Yeah, it's just fabulous. All right, so any final thoughts that you'd like to impart to everybody before we wrap up for the day?
Go see a hypnotherapist. A hypnotherapist can help you live the quality of life that you're wanting and that you deserve.
Yeah, and it's try it once or twice. If you don't like it, don't do it again. But chances are, you're going to try it once or twice and you're going to see that it actually does help you, because I know it's helped me. It's helped you. It helped your brother, all the people that you're dealing with. I've got a lot of friends who are hypnotherapists as well. Just find somebody. I mean, obviously, if you want to reach out to Bill, we'll put the link in the bottom, but klaprothhypnotherapy.com, right? So we'll make sure and put that down there so you could reach out to him, but reach out to anybody. It really doesn't matter. The main thing is that you get help if that's what you'd like, right? Because there's a lot of things that we just feel like we're kind of stuck with the rest of our life, but we're not really stuck with anything. We always have a chance every single day to create a new day, create something different. And this is just one of the many tools that we can all use to have a better life. And so Bill, thanks for coming on today, man.
Thank you.
I appreciated getting to know you better and hearing your story and how you're helping people as well.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.